Alright, hello and welcome to another episode of Invalid Entry. It is the second day of Advent, December the 2nd, 2020, and we've been working on the Advent calendar and actually decorating the tree because all trees have to be decorated for Christmas. All trees have to be decorated. All Christmas trees have to be decorated, otherwise they're not really Christmas trees, they're just trees. As you can see here, we have added some lights because I thought about adding baubles, but I realised you can't add baubles until you add lights. You always add lights to the tree first. So here we have some nice festive Christmas lights. I'm going to take you through how I did this. It wasn't very hard. What we do first of all is I grab my Photoshop and the skills of my Photoshop no bound, or my Photoshop skills no bound. First thing I did, draw some wires. First thing I did was draw some wires. I toyed with the idea of different colour wires, went black in the end. And then I drew these shapes on. So I basically drew one light bulb shape. I tried circles, they didn't look quite right. And I just copy and pasted it and filled some of them in red, some of them in yellow, some of them in blue. Nice and simple. You could programmatically draw these on the tree. I did think about doing that and realised that would be a lot longer than a 5-minute video. But it's easier just to drop them on. Now if you notice, they're not in any uniform manner. Unlike yesterday where these items up here were exactly in line, it's very easy to work out they are. Them not being in a good place is a problem. The next thing I did, and I've got to find it here, was I basically selected them all and I expanded the selection. So I made each one bigger, and that then allowed me to blur one. So if I find one here, which that one there is blurred. So the idea is that the lit version of it is actually just a blur of a bigger version that I'm going to layer over the top. So basically now I've got this base layer, I can basically save my base layer as this again, because I've already got the tree in there. I'm not going to move the leaves or anything fancy, so I can just basically add that as the base layer already pre-rendered. And then what I have to do is I have to save all of these images as separate images. So basically there are 24 coincidental lights that I saved as individual lights. And those saved out as little files. I didn't save them as the full screen. I used the tool and just said save all my layers. These are the layers I didn't want, save all my layers. And that actually saved me lots and lots of little files. And this is when it got awkward. So up to this point, I probably spent a grand total of about 2 minutes doing it because I'm just fast at drawing lines. I'm not particularly putting a lot of effort in. Making the bigger version, expand the selection, and then doing I did a quite a large blur. Did a couple of tests because the first one I did, I think if you notice this one wasn't very good. Did a couple of tests on that, saved all the images out. The bit which actually took me most of, I had this time in the morning between I take the kids to school and then I do this, was actually working out the coordinates of each of this. And in Photoshop and in other things, there's a ruler tool. So what I basically did was I basically selected the middle of that. And if you notice up here, the middle is the first coordinate. The first thing you select is the first coordinate there. That tells me that coordinate. And then I jumped to my code. I do apologise for yesterday. I'm going to close that now. What I did was I defined this array of the assets. So I saved all my images out. I'll make that a bit bigger. And I basically had an array of lights, and I numbered them, it's an ordered array. So they're going from, I know it's a 0 index, but from the first light goes across, down, and back, so I can locate an individual light. I've stored what colour the light is because that will be useful later, I thought. What the file name is of the light is, and its position of the centre point I worked out. And that there are 24 of these, so you go through the entire list and you fill this out, and that's my data block. You might want to put that in like a JSON file and import the JSON file, or put it in a separate file and import it for sanity, because this is a quick and fun thing. I've just hard-coded those values in. To actually get them to appear, I'm going to jump down to the bottom of my code here, is very simple. For light in light, if the asset, by the way, I've got this block here of the asset because I'm actually going to store the surface that it's going to be loaded inside that array, so I can just use it. I don't have to load it on every single light. For light in light, and imagine this is self.lights at this point, load the asset if it's not loaded, and then basically work out, because you always split in the top left point where that is. So basically I'm saying the position I've given you minus half the width and half the height. And then what you have to do is when you run it, you then have to go through each individual one and just tweak it slightly and get it to go slightly left, slightly up, slightly right. So the main thing is lots of little images now being loaded independently. Pretty good so far. The next thing I thought to extend that idea, and I'm not going to take the line by line, but to extend the idea, I decided I was going to make functions and have these functions return arrays of the lights. So you pass it, basically it knows the lights, and it's basically this particular one goes through and puts each one either into the A or the B, then returns 2 arrays, A and B. This particular one goes through and says, well, if it's red, put it in the red list, otherwise put it in the yellow list, otherwise put it in the blue list, and it returns the red, yellow and blue list. And again, you can come up with new ways of splitting those lights up. I then have a bunch of counters, which I declared at the top, to actually say which of these methods am I using at any one point in time, and also which one am I currently looking at and how many frames have I done. So it gives a couple of frames of each time. So when I actually run it, what you find is it will first of all run on, I believe, yellow, green, red mode. So there goes red, all the yellows, all the blues. And if you just watch it for a few seconds, it will swap and it will do alternating. Every other one will be on. Hopefully it will swap sometime soon. Oh, I had to make the door. So door number 2 is open. And it's going to swap. There it does. You see that red and that yellow's on at the same time, and that blue and that yellow's on at the same time, because it's now doing the alternating. So you can now do patterns. You can now make it trace across. Maybe do return not just 3, but return like 20 arrays, and it goes just lights across. Do the pattern. Make it run faster. Make it run slower. Do whatever to make it fun and custom and funky. That's it for today. That's all I've done. It's very simple. There's now 24 more images in the asset folder. Because you've got the blurred version of every light, and literally just layering it on top. I will say that I had to change one other thing. Usually I pre-render, so what I've done is I pre-rendered the background, and I've also pre-rendered the flaps are open. So on every frame it's basically pulling in that pre-render, and then it's just working out the light. So it's only loading the lights in, the glowing part of the light in on every frame, which means I'm still getting a good performance. I'm not being over the top. So I'm basically making a new surface that I'm going to return. So I'll return that on every frame. It's basically deciding whether it needs to work out the lights. The other thing I've got this here is I only actually work out the lights when I swap the mode. I don't work out those arrays on every loop as well. For the size of arrays we're doing with it, not talking about once, but I still want to be quite forgiving to other processes running on the computer. That's it for the lights day. If you enjoy this, please hit like. If you want to see more of these things, please hit subscribe. If you've got any comments at all, any ideas, any suggestions, please type them out below in the comments box. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Happy Christmas.